Welcome back at 8:13. With the holiday season approaching, the New Orleans Women and Children's Shelter wants to draw attention to the alarming surge in family homelessness. This push comes just in time for the National Homelessness and Hunger Awareness Week. With us this morning in studio to tell us more are Madeline Briscoe and Sydney Coleman. They are both with the New Orleans Women and Children's Shelter. Good morning to you both. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning. Thank you.
So Madeline, let's start off with you. Obviously, this is National Homeless and Hunger Awareness Week. Tell us what this week is really aimed at doing.
Yeah, so Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week is coming up this coming week. It happens every year this time of year to really encourage people to think about the situation of homelessness in their communities as the holidays approach. Homelessness is heartbreaking all year round, but particularly so during the holidays. This year is particularly serious situation because we know that homelessness in New Orleans has increased by about 62% year over year. Families with children, all families and individuals are really feeling the pinch this year. We know that costs of living have increased dramatically. Cost of average rent in New Orleans has increased quite a bit over the last several years. So families are having to make some pretty tough decisions this year, and that impacts children most of all.
And of course, this time of year, for people who can help, this is when we want them to help. And Sydney, that brings me to you all. There is a shelter in town, people may not know that, where families experiencing homelessness can stay together and find shelter and food and warmth, correct?
Of course. The New Orleans Women and Children's Shelter has been around since about 2006. We're uptown now, 2020 South Liberty, and we do take families intact. So that means we take fathers and their sons together. And this time of year is very important to give, because this time is a time that the children are suffering even more because they don't have stable housing. You know, our children go through emotional crisis, illness, violence, all of these things approach them even more when they're not stable. So at the New Orleans Women and Children's Shelter, we just at the holidays try to do our best to bring a smile to a child's face. You know, that's the first step and a hope.
And how can people at home who are watching, because I know there are people, thousands of people watching right now who are thinking, okay, I've got to do something to help bring more smiles to these kids and their family faces, at least during this time of year. What can people do? How can they help y'all?
They can reach out through our website. They can reach out to the shelter directly. They can come volunteer. They can bring in-kind donations. We have all types of wish lists for moms, wish lists for children, toy drives. They can do whatever their heart desires. And our doors are always open. So you can come and get a tour of the shelter to see exactly what we're doing and exactly what needs to be done. So just come and join us.
And Madeline, give us the website where people can find out more information. Obviously, so many ways people can help with their time, their talent, or finances. Where can they find out more ways to help you guys?
Absolutely. Our website is www.nowcs.org, so NOCS.org.
All right. Well, Madeline and Sydney, thank you both so much for all you do in this community, first and foremost, and thank you for coming and sharing with us this morning.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.